Hello friends. So my last video got a lot of feedback, which I absolutely love. This is exactly what I intended for, which is to build a very strong community, and I call this a conversation because I'm not here to try to convince you of anything or preach to you or tell you how you should live your life or what you should believe. You have free will, and this is completely up to you how you choose to take this information, if you choose to take this information. Now, today I really want to be talking about the Trivium. I want to talk about manifestation. I want to talk about how exactly we can create in our reality, right? We hear this all the time in the spiritual community. I said it in my last video, right? Becoming the master of your reality, the creator of your reality. And this very term is often skewed in a lot of mysticism, right? It's, kind of given as a sort of concept rather than really being explained in applicable use. And that's a lot of what I want to do on this channel, is take these concepts that have been deeply romanticized and mysticized and bring them down, right, into our kind of human understanding, human nature, so that we can actually apply these great concepts into our life. Now, what I am sharing with you today is deep, ancient wisdom that has existed since the beginning of civilization, since the beginning of all of mankind. What I am sharing today is not something that we as humans created, but is, again, like I was talking about natural universal cycles, natural, and has always existed and will always exist. Because this, the Trivium, is how oneness, or the all, actually expresses consciousness. This is what manifestation is. Manifestation is an expression of consciousness. So as we are expressions of this higher power, this God self, this, you could call it the universe, you can call it the all, whatever you call it, right? This oneness that we speak about a lot in the spiritual community, okay? We are mental creations of this oneness that goes through this Trivium process to create where we are now. So in very simple, basic terms, you have the one. The one splits itself into the two. This is an expression of consciousness, right? This is the masculine and the feminine, right? Polarity. Very, very important concept. Very important. And that polarity, right? When the masculine and the feminine come together, they create the child. And that's what we do. You'll see this again repeat itself, cycles repeat itself throughout all consciousness, throughout all existence. All things you see will have this expression of consciousness. When the one becomes the two, and those two come together to create the three, the three then goes on. The three is representing this action, right? It will go on to create the four, and that's where we get our four elements, and those four elements are going to represent the tangible material reality. Now, I'm not going to get into all of those so deeply, and I would like to personally do more research on these things before I really dive into them. But today I just want to talk about how exactly we can understand and use the Trivium to become truly the creators of our reality. Now, a lot of times in the spiritual community, we hear about our thoughts creating our reality. This is true, but understand that this is a threefold process, okay? As I think, it's the first step. So I feel, that's the second step. So I act, okay? And this step is often, very often, not spoken about. There are a lot of people who might tell you, you could just think anything and it'll just happen, right? If you just think good thoughts all the time, good things will happen to you. This isn't necessarily true. Why? Because it is our actions that are actually becoming the tangible material that is going to be the objective reality around us. Now, what is objective reality? Very simply put, objective reality is what has happened and what is now, right? So everything that we know that has happened in the past has become solidified, okay? It is an effect, all right? So, and everything that is happening in the now is an effect, all right? So there was a causal factor, something put into motion that had an effect in the material plane, right? So right here, you watching this video, you perceiving me here in this video is an objective reality because we can objectively see that this is happening now. So we're going from, like I spoke about in my last video, the prima materia, which is this realm of the infinite, and we're taking from infinite possibilities and we're bringing those infinite possibilities down into the finite realm where things are now solidified. If you ever feel like you have been stuck, right? You have had an awakening, all right? You're going through the spiritual process, right? But you feel like you aren't moving forward anywhere. You're still stuck in old cycles, old patterns, old habits. A lot of it really comes down to not using your proper filtration system that we have naturally within ourselves, right? The mind, emotions, and actions that we take into the world. So, for something to exist in the physical realm, it must have first existed in the mental realm. Everything that is tangible, holdable, right? This book here, my beautiful Kabbalion here. This book, before it was a book, had to be an idea first. That's why all things come from the mind, the mental realm, right? So first we have the pictures in our mind, the thoughts in our mind, okay? When we think those thoughts, they create an emotion within us, okay? So that emotion, think about our heart, okay? Our hearts have an electromagnetic field around them. So our hearts are attracting like magnets. That's why when we feel deep emotions, it is desire that we feel, right? We are pulling in. Think about it. The mental, right? It's this androgynous thing, right? So the mental isn't bound by the masculine or the feminine. When we think about the feminine, we're thinking about inwards. We're thinking about the subconscious, the womb, the nighttime, right? We're thinking about the oceans, the waters. These are internal processes within, okay? Another way you can conceptualize this is imagine the woman, okay? She has a vagina, and the vagina goes inwards, okay? This is an expression of consciousness. Now, on the opposite end of that expression, we have the masculine. The masculine is fiery. The masculine is protruding outwards, okay? The masculine moves forward, not inwards. It moves out, okay? So that's why the consciousness, right? Not the subconscious, but the outward consciousness, okay, is outward. That's why we have our masks, our expressions on the outer level, and then we have our moon, right, the inward level. And again, the way we envisioned it with the woman, we're going to envision it with the masculine. A penis is protruding. It goes outward, okay? So we have this inward expression and this outward expression. We have this androgynous, and it moves into this feminine where we are feeling this on the inside. So this electromagnetic field of our heart is pulling inwards. And what we're doing when we feel this way, right? We're talking about vibrations, pulling in energy. What energy we're pulling in is what we're going to eventually act upon. And the act is us actually using the masculine energy to put it outwards into the physical realm, okay? This goes back to the Trinity, right? The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. The Father in this is representing the mind, the mental realm, right? The Holy Spirit is representing the emotions, the emotional realm. So as I think, so I feel. And these two come together and have a masculine male child. So you will see this exact idea, this concept, it repeated in so many different theologies and so many religions and so many spiritual beliefs and practices that have existed throughout time, right? The sun, the moon, and the earth, right? There's always going to be that expression of the child, and it will always be a male child, simply because the expression of action is a masculine principle. So we can think of this process as a input, okay, what we're putting into the mental realm, processing our heart, our feelings, are what is actually processing what we're thinking, and then the actions that we're taking is going to be the output. Input, process, output, okay? So that's how we're going to be looking at it today. So another way we can conceptualize this is by understanding the Trivium brain. Now, the Trivium brain is a very simplified way of understanding the very, very complex human brain. So we have first our complex, the reptilian complex, which is going to be our primal instincts, okay? This is our fight or flight. This is all of the systems that are going on without us having to think about it, right? So the blood pumping through our system, the manual breathing that we do, right? These are our survival instincts. This is the root, the base nature of our existence. Then we move on to the limbic system, and the limbic system is where we process emotions in our brain. So the limbic system takes information from the higher brain, this developed prefrontal cortex, which is called the neocortex. It takes information from there. The neocortex is where we are actually observing the information, right? These are where higher concepts can exist. And what really separates us from most of the animal kingdom is that we have this very developed frontal lobe where we can process much higher concepts. So we are higher conscious because we can actually think about these concepts that a lot of animals can't think about, such as cycles and patterns like life and death. So when we're observing it, it goes into our neocortex and it is processed through the limbic system, that emotional processor, and then that then feeds information down into our reptilian complex for us to actually act on that information. Humans, we don't often have a need for fight or flight in our everyday lives, but often this fight or flight is triggered because each system works together in tandem. So if we're thinking, right, if we're under high stress, that causes our limbic system to feel an array of negative emotions that tells our reptilian complex to act. So what it actually does when our reptilian complex, when our fight or flight is triggered, is it takes blood from the brain and it sends it into our arms and our legs, putting us in a place where we're not thinking higher concepts anymore. We're more focused on staying alive, right? And I believe that a lot of people in society today are under so much stress that they are constantly living through this reptilian brain. Now, what's really cool about understanding the trivium, that as I think, so I feel, so I act, is that this can actually act as a filtration system. So when you're receiving, right, information, right, objectively from this higher plane, this neocortex, right, without the emotions there, without the actions there, okay, we're just simplifying it right back down to the one, just thoughts, just mental images, right? When we're receiving this information, this is why this is an androgynous thing. It is completely objective. We are just receiving the information. When the information then comes down into the internal, right, the emotional, that is when we start creating beliefs and stories. And this is something that was mentioned by Danielle Lynn, and a huge reason why I wanted to make this video is because I see a lot of people struggling with this concept of creation because they have told themselves stories about themselves, right? And it's often stories that we have learned from other people, right? Let me tell you about you, whether it's your parents or the school system or people at work or whoever is in your circle. Or maybe it's, religious institutions, all right? They're sitting there saying, let me tell you about you. So we, based on that electromagnetic field, are pulling in the energy that we are giving out from this emotion. And that is why when we act on it, it becomes solidified. And once it becomes solidified and it is now an objective reality, the brain is going to go ahead and say, okay, that's true, and confirm that reality. So when a lot of people, they allow their self-doubt to that story they've been telling themselves, right? Oh, like, I want to do this, but this. I want to do this, but this. See, I want to create and I want to live this life, but I have to go and do this thing, right? Those are simply stories that you told yourself that you are choosing to believe. And because you choose to believe them and your emotions around that are so strong, it is those emotions that are pulling in the vibration that is becoming your reality. That, in its most simple terms, is how manifestation works. So it doesn't have to be this crazy deep, overly mystified concept. You don't have to bring out all your little potions and those things are amazing. Do your rituals. Seriously, do your rituals. They're fucking wonderful. What makes rituals so wonderful is that we're actually visualizing and putting a intention out there, and we're putting it into an action. We're making an act out of this mental creation that we felt was true to ourselves. So rituals are wonderful and very important, but you don't have to do all of that. It's very simple. You are creating your reality right now, every single day, simply based off of the information that you feed yourself and whether or not you choose to believe that. So this is why I, in my last video, asked that we imagine situations where we felt uncomfortable so that we can use discernment, and this is how we'll use the filtration system, discernment, whether or not something feels right and resonant, right? Does it feel good? That's such an important question to ask yourself when you are learning to break patterns and rewire your brain to work for you. And this is why I say, like, these things don't happen overnight. This is a process. You've been taught how to think. Let me tell you about you, right? You've been taught how to think. Now that has become solidified. So you have this calcified rock, if you could imagine, right? This calcified hard rock, bashing at it with your hand. Maybe eventually you'll break it, but you're gonna damage yourself, right? We have to go at it. We have to pick it apart, right? We have to go deeper and actually pick apart the pieces to maybe uncover the beautiful geode that was hidden inside this rock. So when a concept has become hardened and calcified, it can be very difficult, depending on how hardened that is within ourselves, to actually break it. So this is why these things take time. This is why we do it one step at a time. This is why doing even 5 minutes of meditation a day is so important. Your consistency is so important because you want to use this filtration system to actually break patterns and teach yourself to naturally invite in new patterns. How are we using this filtration system, right? When you here's something, right? You can take that and process it in your heart. Take a moment in the internal. Take a moment to feel it. Does this feel right? Does this feel true? And yes, again, this is a practice. You're going to take in the information, you're going to feel it. Is this true? Is this right? Does this feel good? If it does not, if it is not true, right? Maybe you need more information to know if it's true or not. Great, wonderful, go do your research. But before you actually act on it, process the information first. Use discernment to ask yourself, is this information true to me? Is this information objective? Is this true to my reality and the reality that I am attempting to create here? What makes you a masterful and powerful creator is simply taking the time and the action, right, to understanding how consciousness manifests itself. Learning this trivium is really about kind of just falling into the flow in the natural ebb and sway of the universe. This is a natural process. This is a process that exists and continues to perform whether or not we are aware of it. It's going to happen anyway, right? And as I was talking about in my last videos, we don't control whether the sun rises in the morning the same way we don't control how consciousness expresses itself. We only have control over whether or not we want to be a part of that process or if we're going to resist that process. There are a lot of people and a lot of skeptics out there who never experience like mystical spiritual happenings because they don't believe that there's a possibility of spiritual happenings. They're waiting for the universe to just suddenly shift and like for them to like have some sort of like, I don't know, like a ghost comes and talks to them so that they can confirm their reality. But if you don't even have it in your heart to believe it, that's never going to happen. So it really does come back down to this heart space and like what the belief systems, the stories that we tell ourselves every day. And as Danielle Lynn says all of the time, the stories are simply that, stories. So we can imagine ourselves, right, as we are creations of the universe who also want to create and express. You can imagine that what we are doing here is we are playing and having fun. That's one perspective that I am offering you now that some of you can really benefit from. Let me tell you, I used to, when I first had my awakening, I used to imagine that this was a big test, that the universe was one big test, and that whatever God was, this all, this knowing, was watching me and tallying up my rights and my wrongs and such. But it's really how I choose to see it now is just us having fun and playing with these vacillations between light and darkness, rather than having to fight the universe to prove myself worthy. I've come to the perspective that inherently I am worthy because inherently I am. And that's all I need, and that's all anybody needs to be worthy, is to just be and to just exist and to flow within ourselves. So if there's any pattern that you have in your life that you feel is hindering you, you do have the tools to change this one step at a time, as I said before, right? This is a very slow process. And once you do get into the habit, right, of breaking patterns and learning how to create for yourself, and it takes practice and takes time, but once you do, you are gaining momentum, right? You're pushing slowly on the gas pedal, so you're kind of starting off a little slow, but the more you press on that pedal, the faster and faster you'll go. So I'm not saying that it's going to suck forever, or that it's always just going to be this slow arduous process. No, it's slow at first because you have these calcified belief systems that you have to break apart. It's slow at first because you have to break open. You have to break open into yourself. Then, once you have the idea down and you start practicing it and it starts working well, by God, it's moving pretty flipping quick. It starts moving real fast. It just starts going and going, and you see the angel numbers everywhere, and all these things start to happen. And if you start to slip, you'll start to maybe have less dreams, or you'll see less angel numbers. And that's no reason to get down on yourself, friend. That's no reason to say, oh, I've lost my sparkle. You know, that's no reason to give up and quit. That's just simply the vacillations between light and dark. So when we're thinking about these alchemical concepts, another concept that I want to bring up is as above, so below, right? We are reflected images of each other. So the macrocosm, this great oneness, this bigness, this all, right, is a perfect reflection of what is happening in the very small, in the microcosm, which is us. So that is why when people proclaim so proudly, I am God, really what they are maybe intentionally or unintentionally saying is that I am a reflection of this higher self. We are one in the same. So the way we create and express is the exact same way this all creates and expresses. And again, that's a reason why we crave it so deeply in our souls to put out and express and be free and break patterns and evolve, is because that is what this consciousness is here to do. On very simple terms, is to know itself, is to understand itself. So it puts itself into infinite different perspectives so that it may come to understand itself. And we can do this process. We can come to know thyself. And the more we know ourselves, that is when we become the master and the ruler of our reality, because we understand that there is no external force that can control us. Nobody can make you believe something. When you're a child, you are a lot more trusting of the people in your life. You are nescient. You are innocent. And when you trust somebody and they tell you something, it's a lot easier for you to believe. Now, when your thoughts and your belief systems have become hardened over time and someone tries to tell you something different, a lot of times people will just say no, right? I don't believe that. And again, that is an active choice that we make, an internal choice, right? Nobody can go inside of you and flip a switch in your brain and make you say yes or no to any decision. It is completely within your control. You are the only person who actually truly has control over yourself. That is what is free will. We have free will. The universe manifested what we are experiencing right now, and we can understand its creation through the 7 laws of hermetics. In a similar way, we can think about natural law and objective truth the same way we think about gravity. Gravity is an objective reality, an objective truth. If you go and you walk off a cliff, whether or not you believe that gravity exists, it does, and you will fall. You can sit there and tell yourself that gravity does not exist and it's not real and you don't believe it. That's completely your choice to make. But doing so will result in consequences because of what I was speaking about a bit earlier, cause and effect. Objective reality is everything that is in effect. No change in the world exists in the plane of effect. All change exists in the realm of causality. So what caused you to fall off that cliff? Either deciding that you didn't want to believe in gravity, or not knowing that gravity existed. It's the same thing when we're talking about the trivium and understanding the expressions of consciousness. If you want to sit there and say that's not true and what she's saying is a whole bunch of baloney, that's totally fine, but understand that because of the natural way of the universe, it will continue to play out that way anyway. When we were talking about bringing the darkness into the light, right? When you push away a natural process and a natural cycle, right? It will happen anyway. So all you're doing is running away or delaying the inevitable. Inevitably, these emotions, these things that you may be pushing down and ignoring, right? You have maybe bad habits that you don't want to have anymore, but you ignore them because it's painful and you don't want to deal with them. You don't want to bring them into the conscious light. Well, they're just going to keep existing, and in fact, likely they are going to get worse, especially if you ignore them. What we're really learning to do here, with all of this in mind, is we are learning to take these uncomfortable processes and, again, bringing them into the consciousness, bringing them into the light, going through our trivium and deciding whether or not this is something we want to continue to act on. It's good to just stop and just listen. It's good to take time to just breathe. Let these concepts marinate in your mind. Let them sit. Let them be. Don't force. And if you force, hey, that's okay. Just focus back on breath. That's what meditation is. That's what yoga is, right? Learning to be so in the present, so in the now. I really want to share this quote by Manly P. Hall that I absolutely love that really ties all of these concepts into one beautiful little sentence. If man corrects himself, it is not necessary for nature to correct him. Okay? So, if I told you, hey, don't walk off that cliff, you're gonna fall, and you utilize your trivium, okay? You think about it. Does that feel right? If it doesn't feel right, how about you test it out, right? Throw a rock over the cliff, okay? Go and do your research, right? If you need more information, go get more information. Don't sit idly by, or I'm giving you the option. It's really a great thing for yourself to go get more information, throw a rock off the cliff. Did it fall? Okay. Throw another rock. Did it fall? Okay. Throw something else, And then you might come to the conclusion that, hey, if all of these things fell when I pushed them off the cliff, I'm probably gonna fall if I walk off that cliff. And if really, then you really can't believe it, go walk off that cliff. Sometimes nature is truly the biggest lesson. Some of the wisest men learn from other people's mistakes, but I am personally someone that probably would have had to walk off the cliff myself to understand that. So, again, we're not talking about a real cliff. This is an analogy. I'm not walking off of cliffs. Who out here is walking off of cliffs? I need to talk to you. I use that analogy because it's so simple. And it's just so easy to conceptualize because everybody understands that gravity is subjective and real and exists. And this is a really, really great way to understand that there is an objective truth in the world. There's an objective reality, right? 1 + 1 = 2, and it will never not equal 2, right? So there's truth. There is truth to be discovered. There is an objective reality. And then there's our perception of reality, okay? If I'm looking above at a cube, right? I'm only seeing a square if I'm looking at it just from one angle. If I'm just looking at it from that one angle, that's just my perception. That's just one small piece of this bigger truth. Now, if I look at it from all the different angles, I can see all the different faces of the cube. I can see all of its different angles, and I have a better idea of truth. My perception is more aligned with the truth. Now, I may think that maybe when I shift over one way, the cube is somehow shifting with me, when it's really not, right? It's just staying in the same place. So if I were to then fully zoom out and look at the cube from all angles at once, right? Then I would see, oh, this is a cube. This is not just a square. This is a whole cube. Now my perception is aligned with the truth. And I actually really quick, before I end this video, would like to give a really quick example on how we can visualize perception and truth. What I'm explaining right now, I learned from Mark Passio, and it completely solidified this within my mind. And I am also going to go ahead and link the lecture that he did that I learned this from, because it was very powerful and it taught me so much of what I am explaining right now. So this line right here, okay? Just imagine it's straight. Imagine it's a straight line, okay? This line here represents truth, okay? This is unmoving, unwavering, right? It is objective. It is infinite. It'll never change, okay? It'll always be this way. It'll always grow, move, evolve, always expanding, always changing, right? This is truth. It's solid, okay? And we can imagine down here is a low vibration, okay? See that? It's a low vibration. So the line represents truth, okay? And the wave is representing our vacillations between light and dark that we naturally exist in, okay? So when the frequency starts to pick up, okay, the higher the frequency goes, the vibrations here, imagine this is also a straight line. I kind of fucked that one up, but imagine this is also at the top a straight line, okay? And when the frequency slows down, it'll do the same thing, okay? So the line again is representing truth, okay? We have low vibrations. You see how this one is so low, it almost looks like it's not moving. And this one is moving so quickly that it looks like it's not moving, okay? Each time this vibration here passes this line, that is when we are aligned with truth, okay? So here are your highs, and then you hit a balance. Once you're in that balance, in that middle, okay, this is the middle path, walking the middle path, finding balance, finding flow. Okay, once you're there, you are aligned with truth. It is easier to see the truth because you have seen both the absolute low of it and the complete high of it, okay? So each time you pass that line, you are experiencing truth and objective reality. When you're at a lower frequency here, the amount of times that you're passing that line of truth versus when you're at like this really high frequency up here, the amount of times that you pass that line of truth is a lot less than when you're at the high frequency. So like 1, 2, 3 times that line of truth is crossed, and then like how many times does it cross here, you know? Like a bunch. I'm not gonna count it out, okay? You get the point. If you don't get the point, then I really recommend watching that seminar by Passio. He explains so well. He's got years and years and years on me when it comes to these concepts. So he will do a wonderful job of really breaking it all down. But yeah, this is really the basics of it. So what we're doing when we're raising our vibrations is we're really just raising our awareness and understanding of truth, of oneness, of objective reality. And we're becoming one with the flow of existence. So that, my friends, is a simple little dive into the Trivium. Ask me questions, I'll answer your questions. And yeah, we're just gonna keep diving deeper and deeper into it. This is what I've learned along my journey. This is how I am becoming a masterful creator of my reality. I'm holding your hand, my love. Hold my hand, hold my hand. Okay, you got it? Okay, wonderful. I'm taking you with me. Come along with me. We're gonna do this shit together, and you are not alone, okay? We're in this together because I am a baby on my journey too. I'm not going to sit here and claim to be higher than any of you, or better than any of you, or know more than any of you. I only know what I know, and I'm only here to share it, really, because there wasn't a lot of people, you know, that were telling me these things. I had to go out and discover them. And you have wonderful creators in the world like Passio and Danielle Lynn, and the Know Thyself podcast was a really big one for me. Carl Jung also as well, Manly P. Hall, like just really wonderful, amazing, spiritual, wise people out there who put the information out. And I'm just extending my hand to make it as accessible to you as possible so that you can also become this masterful person and create. And so again, we can do this together. And I really hope that this is fruitful. I really hope that the point has come across and that, you know, you're really vibing with the energy and you're really feeling it and you're very resonant with it, because that's super important to me, is that this is something that resonates. And if it doesn't, or if there's anything that you might need more clarity on, anything that doesn't make sense to you, please go ahead and, you know, share your mind, speak your mind. Let me know in the comments down below, and whatever questions you have, I will do my absolute best to dive into everything, do as much research as possible, and also go through my own experiences so that I may be able to explain these things to you the best that I can. So, peace and love to all of you. Thank you to everybody who stuck around throughout this video. I know this one's a lot longer, but it really brings me so much joy to know that there are people out there who are truly ready to become co-creators together. Let's do this. We got it. Awesome. I love you guys. Thank you so much.